Last night's post-game video about the Vancouver Canucks and the Nashville Predators went over the game itself. We talked about the intro, we talked about the fans, we talked about the goals, we talked about the comeback, we talked about the series, yada yada yada. But in this video, what I wanted to do was talk about the multiple comments that were shared by players on this team as to the atmosphere in the building. Because I think JT Miller said it best. He pretty much said that he has a new perspective on what Canucks fans are about, based off of the Canucks fan response to Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And I think that is an all-encompassing comment that pretty much tells everything. It justifies everything. Vancouver hockey is certainly something. As we've been talking about over the years, Vancouver has a variety of sports. I mean, we've got the Lions, we've got the Whitecaps, we've got the Canadiens, but when it comes to the sport that has the opportunity to take over the city and the surrounding areas in the Lower Mainland, we're talking Richmond, Delta, Surrey, especially Scott Road, shout out to y'all, Poco, North Van, Burnaby, everything surrounding Vancouver and downtown Vancouver, this entire area can just be taken over by hockey. Vancouver fans are nuts. Vancouver media, one of the harshest in the league, and it's been like that for years. This is not new. Vancouver hockey has been vibrant for decades, but in the decade that had just passed, the Canucks were so bad, so inconsistent, always near the bottom of the standings, and eventually working themselves back up into slowly being a playoff contention-worthy team, that there's a lot more bad than good in this city for the past decade, pretty much. And that was reflected in the fans, it was reflected in the media, everybody kind of knew it was there. Oh, they're so bad, they're getting high draft picks, they're drafting top prospects, and Jim Benning is trying to build a playoff contender, but it's not working, and now we're scrutinizing him even more. And as a result, you know, when the team plays poorly, it's not just the executives and the GM that gets all the flack, it's the players too. So as players would get scrutinized, people talked about the Ericssons, people talked about the Goodbransons, the Spizas, important guys that were really thrusted into bad spots in this city, were overpaid and scrutinized because of it. It kind of took away from what Vancouver hockey fans are capable of, and just how good everything can be when everything goes right. You know that crazy ex you got? Yeah, the one that's super emotionally driven, both on the highs and the lows. When it's bad, oh, it's bad. You know it's bad. You feel guilty, you're gaslit, you want to go back to her, you want to reconcile things. But when things are good, oh boy, things are good. I'm going to leave it at that. But when things are good in this city, you get the atmosphere that we had seen yesterday. The intro, where the streets have no name, fans in the stands waving the towels. The pre-game ceremony was fantastic, and you saw players, you saw people in the building, you saw media members in awe at what Vancouver is capable of. Nikita Zadorov, there was a video of him during the national anthems where he was just kind of taking in the moment. He was just there, standing up, turning around, just looking at everybody in the crowd. And as some of the post-game stuff came out, we heard from these Canucks players just how much the atmosphere was able to influence the game. Take a look at these comments from Ian Cole, grizzled vet, two-time Stanley Cup champion Ian Cole. I can't understate how amazing the atmosphere was. Guys were saying they had goosebumps and tears in their eyes in warm-up. JT Miller said that he got emotional when he stepped onto the ice and heard the crowd. He said after the birth of his kids and his wedding, it was one of the most special things he has been a part of. Tyler Myers said that he also had to take a moment to take it all in. And Elias Lindholm said the same thing. He had goosebumps with how electric the Canucks crowd and atmosphere was in pregame and warm-up. And this is where you started to see Vancouver be its best once again. And I'd say it was the intro and it was after the Dakota Joshua goal where fans were absolutely at their peak. Because as we had said in the video yesterday, just breaking down the game itself, by the time it was 2-1, you started to see the energy die down a little bit. I know Rick Tocchet said that the energy was always there, but you could sort of feel it on your TV, watching from home. that the building wasn't as poppin' for opening parts of the third period and beyond. So by the time Quinn Hughes got the Canucks back on the board, that's when everything was revived. The hockey gods said clear and jolted this city back to life, and Quinn Hughes got on the board, the building was popping back, and then Dakota Joshua scored. And for the rest of the night, the building was not getting silenced. You could barely hear John Shorthouse's voice while the entire rest of the game was going on. I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, I have no idea what this guy's saying. The crowd is too loud. Either somebody is improperly mixing the levels on this TV broadcast, or the crowd is just that gosh darn loud. And with all the Canucks responding to the crowd and how everybody was pumped up about it, like, this is where Vancouver hockey shines. And it's only game one. This was crazy. Dakota Joshua went out there and said this in the post-game presser: the building was crazy. You think you know what to expect until you get out there, and you don't. The fans were behind us all night. You also had yourselves the Quinn Hughes interview after the game, where Dan Murphy asked him about the crowd, and Quinn let out this pretty nice smirk to the camera. Like, that's the first time we've ever seen the guy smile. But he went out there and said this: I couldn't really believe how loud the fans were. I've seen some playoff games. I went to New Jersey and the Garden last year and watched, but it wasn't anything like we had just witnessed. Quinn Hughes telling you that for free. And just going over some of the extra reactions and post-game comments, because, you know, as we had said, we didn't talk about any of these in the video yesterday, but I do think it's appropriate to address. You did have yourselves some other comments made by Rick Tocchet that I also thought were great in response to this game. Tocchet said after the game it was impressive how loud the fans were. Even when we were down 2-1, they didn't waver. Honestly, Tocchet must have noticed stuff that I didn't, because watching from home on the TV, like, I'm not saying the crowd was dead when they were down 2-1, but you could definitely feel there was a contrast between the before and after moments of the goals being scored by Vancouver. You also had another tweet made by Kate Pedersen on Tocchet. This is what he said about Elias Lindholm and his game. Let's face it, that's why we acquired him. For tonight, these are the games and why you acquire Lindholm. His 200-foot game, it was really good. I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I wanted to hammer it down home once again. Lindholm played fantastically in Game 1. He was attached to the hip on tough matchups. He scored the goal. He should have had an assist on the Dakota Joshua goal. I don't know if he still has it right now, but the guy was an absolute force, back-checking, stealing pucks, making plays on the PK. This is why the Canucks got Elias Lindholm. And Nikita Zadorov, the other Calgary Flames guy, was so good too. Just the keeps in the line, the shots, the physicality. He was so good. A lot of this team stepped up yesterday. And even the owner himself, the big guy up top, the Aquaman himself, Roman Reigns, nope, just kidding, it's Francesco Aquilini. He went out there and said this yesterday on Twitter: man, so tight. Almost like a playoff game. Now, if you know where this is from, this is like the funniest thing in the world. So like 6 years ago, Francesco Aquilini tweeted this exact same tweet out when referring to like a game in the middle of October. The Canucks were a bad team at that point. Francesco was trying to pump up the tires of the fans by saying, wow, look at this regular season game. It's like a playoff game. And everybody memed that statement to death. Up until today, when it gets reused and put out once again, man, so tight, almost like a playoff game. And all the responses to this, I mean, J.D. Burke was like, holy crap. You had Luke saying, what healed faster, Francesco's reputation after this tweet, or Mark Stone's spleen? The Canucks are winning playoff games at Rogers Arena, and the owner is memeing with his own memes. This is the height of the Vancouver Canucks as a franchise. Mr. Booth, the legendary Mr. Booth, said no effing way. Quads, he really did it. He really did it. The vibes could not be better right now. This is a lot to take in, and, you know, we're all here for the ride. It's only been one game. It's only been one game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about some of these other extra Canucks tidbits. I had to throw this in there. We'll also have another video later today talking about the Canucks losing out on another prospect, because that did happen this morning, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate to include that in this video because this was all about the playoffs. This is all about the good stuff, baby. No room for the bad vibes in this video. We'll save that for the next one, but either way, thoughts in the comment section about the Canucks and the atmosphere. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.